Hello fans of Moshpit Passion, my name is Kayo. Right next to me is Jason Christopher of Pronk, and we will talk about his new book. So Jason, my first question is, what inspired you to write a book?
I started writing on the internet when the internet came out. Like Friendster was the first social media site that was like really big, and it had a blog thing. It had a blog section on it, and I was living in Hollywood, and I was drinking and doing a coke, and I was a doorman at nightclubs all over town, and I would get really aggravated, and I would come home, and I would release my aggravation in these blogs, and I would just start writing. I couldn't spell, I couldn't punctuate, I could only articulate from my mind to the keyboard. And people started taking an interest in it. Like people were like, "Oh my God, this is really amazing. You're very interesting. You're very intricate in your writing. I feel like I was there," or whatever it was. That's what started me writing. I'm not a reader. I don't read books. People were comparing me to like Bukowski and Miller and all these people, and I was just like, these are like real writers, you know what I mean? Like real writers, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude, you know what I mean? But like I kept writing because it was fun and it was getting me attention, and I love attention. So that was like one of the main thing for me to start writing was that, and I just kept doing it. And then like MySpace came out, and they had a big blog section, and then Facebook came out, and I started writing on there, and then I started doing it on Blogspot, and I always wanted to write a book, you know, like everybody always wants to write a book. Everybody always thinks they have some interesting story to tell. But, and my story is no different really than a lot of people's, you know, like I have a lot of friends that have the same fucking story, you know, they came out to LA to live their dream. They got all fucked up and they got sent back home, you know what I mean? But like, I think I have a way of, the way I write is the way I describe things that I've experienced. I have a way of putting the reader in the story, so they kind of feel like they're there, you know?
Definitely.
And so I really try to work on that more these days. But my friend, the book came about by a good friend of mine, Tom Kapinos. He's the creator of Californication, and he's a very successful writer. But I didn't know him at the time, and I was doing a photo shoot for my best friend Corey Taylor's book, and oddly enough, at that photo shoot, I got a message on my Instagram from Tom Kapinos. And he messaged me and he said, "Hey, not for nothing, but from a failed musician turned successful writer, I stumbled upon your blogs, and I think you really have a gift." And I was like, and Corey was sitting next to me, and I was like, and I read this message to him, and he was like, I was like, "Who the fuck is Tom?" I was calling him Tom Kapinos because I didn't know how to pronounce his last name. And he goes, "Tom Kapinos?" He goes, "Dude, that guy created Californication." And I was like, "Oh my God, that show is like loosely based on my life." Like I feel like he knew, like when I would watch that show, I felt like he knew me. So I was like, "Oh my fucking God." So I Googled him and I was like, "Holy shit, it's him." So then I wrote him back and we exchanged a few emails back and forth. And then we met for lunch. And I kind of told him the ideas that I had. And he was like, "You should write the book, man. I think you should write a book." And I was like, okay. So I just started writing this, and I would send him inserts. Like I would write a couple of paragraphs, and then I would send it to him, and he would. I was like, "What do you think?" And he would only send back, "I don't know what you're expecting me to criticize here, but the only thing I can say is that I never want it to end." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." So that's where I got the idea, because this is a trilogy. So this is the first part of a 3-part series. There's 3 books. I'm writing the second one right now. And so I was like, well, he never wants it to end. So then I'll make it like a fucking Star Wars trilogy. You know what I mean? Like when Star Wars ended, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for the second one. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And I was scared to write this, you know, because that's like my heart and soul in there. And nobody wants to get criticized for their heart and soul, you know? And people on fucking Blabbermouth and Metal Injection and all those sites, they're brutal. You know, like the comment section is just ridiculously brutal. So I was just scared that I would be judged, or nobody would like it, or nobody would care. But I put it out anyway, after 2 years of working on it, you know. And reviews are amazing.
Definitely.
Like, everybody's really digging it, and everybody seems to enjoy it. So that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to write more. You know, and it's very cathartic as well.
Yeah.
Like getting all this out, because it's not just like all the rock stars books are great and everything, but it's not like a rags to riches type story. You know, it's just like. It's like all my feeling and my heart and my soul are in that book, and I wrote it myself. There's not a ghost writer. And, you know, I didn't even really know what the fuck I was doing. I just kind of did it and put it out, and it seems to be being received relatively well for me.
Definitely.
You know, like for somebody in my position who isn't really anywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Like you mentioned before, it will be a free piece, so the writing style and the topics will be the same, or is there any difference that you say, yeah, that is more about when I come to LA, the second one is more about my band experience in band, I don't know.
Oh, it's a continuation of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is from 1994 when me and my guitar player drove across country in her shitty little Hyundai car with 200,000 miles on it. We had no money. We just drove because we didn't want to. We were in New York and it was cold. It was winter. And we didn't want to be in the winter anymore. And I heard LA was very sunny and beautiful. So that's that story. It's the drive across country, what happened for the year I was out there, you know. So and then the second book will be what happened when I went back home for 5 years, and then the third book will be like 10 years up until now.
So I want to talk a bit about the first chapter. I don't want to spoil the whole
don't
book
give
on
any,
the internet.
No spoilers.
So
I don't die at the end.
You founded a band called Beast. It was a free piece.
Right.
And which thing pisses you more off? That you didn't play it on Woodstock? The bad comments about the on Amazon about the book? Or at least if somebody found a mistake in your book?
I don't care about the mistakes because I'm not a writer, you know? Like, yeah, I'm a published author, but I'm not a writer. I barely graduated high school. I have more street smarts than book smarts, for sure. And I'm not a reader, so I don't know how that's supposed to go. I just did it from my heart, you know? And I think that's what's the most important thing. The Amazon comment, there's one bad comment, and they compare me to Corey's books. Honestly, I've never read any of Corey's books. Sorry, dude. I love you to death, but I've never read any of your books, so it's impossible. That's what makes me so mad, because I can't find that lady to comment on her. I just want to be like, I've never even read any of his books, so fuck you. And what was the other one? Beast never getting to play Woodstock. That hurt at the time. In hindsight, it makes sense that we didn't get to play it because we weren't ready. And none of the bands that played it, none of the local bands that got to play Woodstock '94 were ready either. And none of them went anywhere, except for the drummer from the band 3. The drummer Josh is now the drummer in Coheed and Cambria.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
interesting. So when you found out, I can say it, that the singer and the drummer had a relationship or slept once. And then
no, they had a relationship.
And that was falling apart. What was your first reaction when you heard, fuck, the band is done, we can't play Woodstock?
It was a very dark, empty feeling for me, you know, because that was like this was my way out of Woodstock, man. Woodstock is a very small town. There's nothing to do there. I just felt like I was very held back, you know, and I just wanted more musically, and I thought that she was the one that was going to get me there. It wasn't so much Joe, the drummer, you know. It was all about her. She was the songwriter. She had all the talent, and so when the band, when we fired him. We didn't really disband at that time, you know. Like when we fired Joe, I was like, oh, you know. So it was like an empty feeling, but I didn't really care too much because I knew we were going to find somebody else, and I knew we were going to just keep playing, you know. So I think the comment pisses me off the most out of all three of those things. For sure.
No, when I get your book and was reading the first chapter, it always comes to this Woodstock thing that maybe I don't know that you don't like, that there's so much capitalism behind that people come into town think, hey, I'm in Woodstock, and for a person who is from Woodstock it's 1 hour out of Woodstock.
Right.
So I think, is it right that you don't like that way, that a lot of people spending money on this?
Well, I just think it was just kind of weird, you know, because it's all about peace, love, and free free everything, free love, free fucking, what's a free concert, man? And now they make millions and millions of dollars. You know, I'm like best friends with the owner's daughters, so I don't like to, I'm not really bad-mouthing them. I'm just kind of calling it out for what it is. You know, it's total capitalism. Like everything that has the Woodstock symbol on it with the bird, with the guitar, like he gets a piece of that. And that's great, man. Like good for him for that. But I just thought it was really funny. Like growing up in Woodstock, we always hated the hippies, and we always hated the drum circles, and we always hated the picketing signs, and we were very punk rock about the whole thing, you know. But we loved the tourism because the girls would come to town and we could rob people that would leave their purses on the benches or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was what it was.
You describe yourself as a hired gun.
I am.
And for our German viewers, can you explain this term?
Hired gun is I get paid to play. If you need a bass player in your band and you think I would be a good fit, you know, they call me and they ask me to play. You send me the songs. I tell you how much I get paid. If you could pay me that, then we go. I learn your songs and we do the deal. That's really all it is, you know. And then I keep getting I get job from other jobs, you know, like I play with Prong, and then somebody sees me playing in Prong, and then they need a bass player, but Prong's not on the road, and they're like, hey, what about Jason Christopher? You know, he's fucking great. I saw him playing Prong, and then they call me and they're like, hey, you want to do this thing? And you know, I've been lucky to be able to do that with so many people, you know, over the past over 10 years now. I've been pretty, I wouldn't say successful, but successful, you know.
Definitely. I mean, you played in Sebastian Bach, Ministry,
Sebastian
Prong.
Bach, Ministry, Prong, Corey Taylor. I was in Stone Sour for a while. Yeah, it's been a great run. I mean, I'm not fucking complaining at all. I'm like one of the luckiest dudes in the world, you know, which is what the third book is about. You know, like, because this is me not having a clue about anything, and the third book will be me successfully not having a clue about anything. You know,
so yeah, like you mentioned before, you and Corey Taylor are friends, and you both doing music. You play in his band and release a book. What about if you come both to, let me say, Europe and do some kind of reading and playing session? Is this an option?
If the book did well enough where I could do that with him, that would be killer. I would love that, you know. But you know, usually I'm his sidekick. I'm his guitar player for his book tours that we do in the U.S. As far as a European one goes, that would be up to him. You know, I mean, he's so busy with Stone Sour, and as soon as he finishes Stone Sour, he always goes right into Slipknot, and that's basically how his life goes. You know, but since he started writing books, he'll put away a couple of weeks of time in between Stone Sour and Slipknot to do a book tour or to do a couple of solo shows. Like we're doing, when I get back in October, you know, the Jericho cruise. Chris Jericho, the wrestler, is putting on a big metal wrestling cruise.
Yes, alright, he's from Fozzy, right?
Right. Yeah. Going to the Bahamas, and me and Corey are going to do that.
Oh, nice,
on the boat in October. So that's going to be really fun. And then I would like to eventually do my own thing. Nice. But I think I need to get a little more publicity with the book and write another one and just keep it going until people started, you know, recognizing it and being like, oh yeah, and then I could actually have people show up when I play these things, you know, because I think if I did it right now, everybody would just be like, who's Jason Christopher? Like 5 people would be like, oh, the guy from Ministry or whatever, you know. Like they don't know that I'm a writer or whatever. So I'm just trying to get as much push for that as I can. So I appreciate the interview for sure.
No problem, man. And yeah, you dedicate this book to your son.
I do.
And what kind of advice can you give maybe our viewers who is reading these books or maybe is an upcoming musician?
I mean, advice from me is it's just weird, you know. Like I'm not looking down on myself or talking bad about myself. I just, you know, I'm just a guy that fucking never gave up, you know. Like I never gave up, whether I was always like a doorman at a club or a stagehand pushing amps. I was always playing music. I was always in a band, and I always wanted, everybody like always wants to be famous or whatever, you know, everybody wants a piece of that pie or whatever, but I originally started playing music because I wanted to have sex with girls and drink lots of beer and you know, like the 1980s videos of Poison and Guns N' Roses and all that shit. But eventually it started becoming a healing process for me, you know, because I'm very tormented and I'm very I torture myself constantly in my head, and this is a way, writing and playing music and being in front of people on stage is a way for me to get it out, you know. So I mean, I don't know, I may have been long dead by now. You know, I may have killed myself many years ago if it wasn't for these outlets that I have. So my only advice would be to people in general, not if you're playing music or not, like just have some sort of outlet to release all that fear and anger and confusion and all that stuff, you know, like, because this is what really, because I'm fucking crazy. Like, I'm so emotional and I'm moody, and my Facebook is all over the place. And girls are like, he's out of his mind, and you know what I mean? Because I'm a fucking child. I'm a huge man-child. But this is, it balances me out. I'd be way worse without it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's really the only advice I have is to just don't give up and have an outlet, have a hobby, have a creative outlet that you could release all that shit. You know.
So yeah, one last question before we do a small reading is
we're gonna do a reading from the book.
Is our magazine called Moshpit Passion, and our artist always saying the first or last Moshpit experience. And do you have an idea when it was, where it was, and with which band?
I'm extremely old, so my last mosh pit experience was at a Pantera show on the Vulgar Display of Power tour, I believe, or it may have been the Far Beyond Driven tour. I don't remember, but all I remember is I jumped on the stage, and I loved to stage dive back then. Like, I was a huge stage diving fan, and Big Val, rest in peace, was on the side of the stage. He was Pantera's main security guy for years. He's on all the videos and all that stuff. He's the big guy with the mustache, and I ran up, and he was standing there like this. And I had to go because he was going to throw me. So I jumped, and thank God I didn't stage dive like I normally did. I jumped, and there was nobody there to catch me and it was a long way down. And I came down, and I felt my ankles like hit my knee and snap back, and I just sprained my ankle, and I couldn't walk. And that was my last mosh pit experience. But like, I remember running the pit at L'Amour's for the Slayer South of Heaven show in the 80s, and you know, I jumped on stage for the Anthrax Public Enemy tour, you know, and like Chuck D was like running this way and I was running that way, and he like slapped my hand as I drove. I was like, yeah, and I like jumped on the stage. And I was a fucking psycho little kid that just loved to dance all the time, you know. So that's why I always love when kids fucking go crazy or they jump up on stage. I'm never like, get the fuck off, you know? I'm always like, unless they're fucking with my shit, then I'm like, dude, get the fuck off. But there was one time I was at a Chili Peppers show on the Mother's Milk tour.
Oh, classic one, classic record.
And Flea's cable was coiled, and I went to stage dive, and I got caught up in his coil, and I tripped in it, and I fucking jumped off the stage, and that's all I know. And then somebody had a bootleg of the video, a VHS tape that I was on, and they were like, dude, I found a VHS tape that you're on, and you see me do the stage dive, get caught up in his bass cable, and his bass, he's playing like this, and all of a sudden his bass like flies up because I'm pulling it with my leg, and then he looks up and he sees me and he tries to kick me in the head. I had no idea about this until I saw the video, and he tries to kick me in the head, and he just misses me, and I jump off the stage, and he was like, oh, and he was like so mad at me, and and then I told him this story many years later, and he was like, oh, motherfucker.
Is it on YouTube, that show?
I doubt it. I mean, it was the Blood Sugar Sex Magic tour. That was the Pearl Jam, it was Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam, and the Chili Peppers. And nobody knew who the Smashing Pumpkins were yet because Gish had just come out. So it was a fucking long time ago, man. I'm
Crazy,
old.
Man.
I'm old as shit.
So yeah, Jason, thank you very much. And now we'll switch over and do the reading. Okay.
This is right before I drove out to California. I moved up to Albany for a little while, and I was bouncing around on my friends' couches, and I had never had my own apartment before, and I ended up getting a job as a prep cook in some restaurant, and the roommate, one of my guys that I worked with in the kitchen, needed a roommate, so I moved in with these guys, and this is a little excerpt from that chapter called The Days of Wine and Roaches. All the apartment buildings on the block were stacked together like flammable sardines in a can. If one caught fire, we were all fucked. No room to keep any sounds, no room to keep any of the sounds you never want others to hear in the privacy of your own confinement. My room was literally a very unstable back porch that hung precariously off the back of the apartment that was all the way up on the 5th floor, encased with a covered window screen that had tears in them the size of balled-up fists, so all the mosquitoes could crash my porch light party when the sun went down. The white paint over the wooden walls below the screens were tattered with illegible tags, spray-painted on every panel in all different colors. And my bed, a.k.a. the stained hammock, stretched from one side of the room to the other, attached by only a few rusty nails and some brittle twine, which was almost likely how the porch was attached to the building. It was very insecure. There was also a bunch of broken glass in the pocket of that hammock to add ambiance to this situation. I was so tired of mooching off my friends that it could have been a pile of gasoline-soaked sandpaper that I was sleeping on for all I cared. I was so stoked to finally have a place to call my own. This was going to be my new life. I was only a few days into my newfound stability and was sitting in the living room strumming on one of Pete's busted-up acoustics that was very similar to the 4-stringer I used to jam at the Tinker Street Cafe. Joe was frying up some vegan cardboard slathered in barbecue sauce in the kitchen, and everything was right in the world. A cockroach scurried past Joe's foot, disappearing under the stove, and that was that. We were on our way to the hardware store to buy every can of roach spray they had. We got back, wrapped shirts around our faces to protect us from the fumes, and went straight into the kitchen, proceeding to hit every corner, crack, and hole in the wall. Electrical outlets, behind the refrigerator, underneath the chairs and tables, the stove, the ceiling, everywhere. Those nasty little scarabs were about to be sent back to ancient Egypt where they belonged. Feeling very sure of ourselves about handling the problem, we took a walk around the block to let the dust settle and clear the chemicals out of our lungs for a bit. When we got back, I walked back into the living room and picked up the guitar, and Joe walked back into the kitchen. I heard a strange moan. It sounded like a moan that was too scared to scream. It was kind of like this. I went in to see what was going on, and oh my fuck, cockroaches, tons of cockroaches. They were scattering all over the walls, under the table and chairs, darting out from behind the stove and refrigerator, dropping out of the light fixtures in the ceiling, toppling over each other onto the floor. You could almost hear them screaming. You could definitely hear them screaming. There's no almost. I don't know why I put almost in there. You heard just like a hiss, a huge hiss. You could almost hear them screaming, "I'm blind!" in unison. We had opened a portal and were now dealing with a harbinger of doom. The irony of being in Joe's apartment was not lost on me. Joe's apartment was a show on MTV in the 90s. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it had cockroaches and shit in it. I ran out the door, leaving everything I owned, and never went back. I quit Cafe Hollywood, and a few days later walked out to the Thruway and hitchhiked back to Woodstock. And that's just part of the mystery that is me.
So where can people order your book?
You can buy this book on Amazon. It's also available on Kindle, and you could go to my Instagram, which is JasonChristopher1971, and my link to my store, which is jasonchristopher.store, is there, where you can get this book signed or not signed if you would like. I also have necklaces with pics on them that I sell on that store as well. So jasonchristopher.store, Amazon, Kindle, and that's that. And thank you for having me.